Hey guys, Basil and Wolf from Grayson Hobby, and today we guys are going to show you how to convert your ET115 V2 to a CineWhoop. What does that mean?
We're going to put a mini split on it, basically. Yes. So Basil posted online asking if you guys want to see a video of us installing a mini split onto the 115, something in a project he did that he wanted to try around. Mainly because he wanted HD video on his 115 because Basil is obsessed with the 115. So something he asked about, and he posted online if you guys want to see a video. You guys overwhelmingly
said yes.
That you guys want to see it, so that's what we're doing. So we're going to turn a regular ET115 into a quote-unquote CineWhoop, basically by adding the mini split. A lot cheaper than getting a GoPro, and one, you're not going to put a ton of weight on top of these quads, so it's going to add very little weight and give you HD quality.
Right. So before we begin, props up to Albert Kim. I saw one of his videos and he kind of gave me the idea. I think he modified this. I'm not 100% sure. He had a link into his on his video to this guy. This is a Thingiverse kind of 3D printed part.
Yeah, one of our local customers printed it for us, so you guys will need to find somebody either with a 3D printer or buy it from someone or something to that effect.
So before we go any further, all the links to everything we're going to have here, the information is all going to be in the description below. And also, even on our Facebook group, the local guys are printing these up, and if you give them some PayPal money for a cup of coffee or beer or whatever, they'll maybe print you one up. And that's that for that.
Yep.
So it will take some time. It's not very difficult. You will need to solder. I know they hate the big old S word, but you will have to solder 2 wires.
Yeah, I mean, as far as hardware, you'll need a 3D printed mount. You'll need 6 zip ties. You'll need 6 M3 6mm screws. You'll need 3 M3 standoffs about 30mm tall. You'll need 2 M2 by 5mm screws to secure the camera. And you'll need your soldering iron, flux, and solder to do the soldering work. And that's pretty much it as far as what you'll need, other than what comes with either the mini split or the quad. Just something a little different, a little tutorial. Mainly, I was building one for Basil, so I figured I'd go ahead and do a video for you guys too.
I'm back from the future.
All right, so we're here.
Mid-edit, don't get me wrong, this is mid-edit of the video we just did on how to install your camera. Will kept saying off camera, this is stupid, this is stupid.
I'm pretty sure I said it on camera at least once,
Imagine that. So, tell them what you're going to tell me.
There is no need to take the quad completely apart if you can get into BetaFlight, if you can do CLI, and you can copy and paste a line of text.
Say no more. We'll show you that next video, the details.
Control-C, Control-V.
We'll show you that, how we did that next video. Be sure to subscribe to our channel. But for this video, we're going to show you the painstakingly hard way of desoldering it, taking it apart, spinning around for absolutely no reason. Since we already filmed it, we're going to show it to you.
Yeah, this is the hardware way of reversing it.
All right, well, your fans asked. Now you're going to
provide. So basically, we're going to take Basil's really beat up, nasty 115 here, and we're going to put the micro split on it, or mini split. So you're going to need to source a couple parts yourself. Besides the mini split, you'll need a 3D printed mount of some sort for the plate. You'll need a couple 28 to 30mm M3 standoffs, whether they're plastic or metal. I would go with metal versus the nylon ones just for strength and durability and crashing. You'll need a couple. You'll need 6 M3 screws, and depending on how you're going to mount the camera or the mini split, the hardware that comes with it is not long enough screws, so you'll need to source out some longer screws as well, like M2 screws.
Or you could be like me, if in bind, I literally double-sided tape. Now that's not ideal, but it got me in a pinch, and I was able to fly that same day.
And we'll go over that later when we get to that part. But you won't be using the screws that hold the canopy anymore. You won't be using those. Basically, you're going to need some hardware there, some M2, M3 hardware, and some standoffs and the mount. And you will have to take apart the quad. So this is one of those times where you have to take the whole thing apart. So guys, please pay attention to what you're doing. If you're not very experienced with this, it might not be a mod that you want to do.
This quad is working perfect. We just bound it up and flew it just to make sure. And so, what's the first step?
So basically, you're going to take the 3 screws off to remove the canopy. So we're going to get the canopy up. And for the sake of getting all this stuff going, we're going to have to unplug the camera. And then the buzzer is going to get relocated. So you're going to have to pry on the little plastic tabs that hold the buzzer in, which you got to be careful because otherwise you'll pull the wires off the buzzer, and the little LED module pops out. So we're not going to use the factory camera anymore, so that's going to go aside. I'm going to go ahead and, for the sake of this video, I'm going to go ahead and you'll mount those later, but you can just unplug that whole harness. I'm just going to leave that aside for now.
So everything's unplugged. This is probably the best time to go in there and start unplugging everything, honestly.
Yeah. So now we need the mini split. So get the mini split out here.
All right, so our mini split is
looking
good.
We got the mini split. We'll need hardware for the mini split. Some of the hardware. Let's get this thing out of the box here. So there's a couple different options that we have for assembly. We're going to show you one way, but I'll mention the other way for some of the stuff. So one thing you'll notice about this mount system is the camera's here. We got the hole pattern here. Well, if you look at it, the hole pattern for the camera
is opposite.
So
what he means, there are 3 single hole is in the front here.
Yeah, because you're going to use these 3 holes here,
and our single hole is in the front there.
3 holes there. So this thing's going to be running backwards. We don't want the camera facing reverse.
We're going to take the forward arrow button on the flight controller, and we're going to flip it around. So now he's pointing that way.
Yeah.
And to do that, you don't have to unsolder anything, because all this is one, like a skeleton.
Because these holes are in the wrong spot.
So basically, we're going to take the quad, the guts, and just flip it around 180.
Yeah. We just need to flip the frame around, basically.
Because of our holes in the frame. That's the only reason why. So if you get a different mount or a different frame or whatever, and then you don't have to do this.
I'm going to go ahead and remove the 4 standoff screws, nuts here. I'm going to leave the standoff in place at the moment, and I'm going to go ahead and take all the motors off.
And this is the fun part right here, because you have 4 times 4. So
16 screws. Yeah.
All right.
So I'm just pulling all the screws off into a side because that way I can keep up with these things.
Yep, because there's a lot.
Yeah.
Difficult.
Again, this is just one of the ways to do it. Got the motors. You're gonna need to take this tape off, either peel it back or cut it. I'm just gonna cut it.
I peeled it off, but
you peeled was it reusable?
I couldn't reuse it, but
so if it's not reusable, then I'm just gonna cut it off.
Right. So get up your wires and
so I'm gonna go down the side of it right here. Don't cut the motor wires.
And you can just use your fingernails, because that's what I did. Okay, so all
right, so we got all that. Now we're gonna drop the stack, and this is where the fun begins, guys, because there's parts everywhere. And you just heard all that drop. Oh, but wait, there's more. We have to desolder. So this looks like a giant mess because we're gonna have to solder.
Or desolder. So basically what's happening is our little VTX, it's normally on the bottom, and then runs the wires come out and it goes to the flight controller. So in order to flip this around, you have to snake the flight controller.
Well, the big issue is the leads going from the VTX to the ESC are not long enough to flip the ESC around.
Right. So what the easiest thing to do is just take the 2 wires on your VTX, or on your flight controller, 2 wires on your flight controller, desolder, flip it through.
So we're gonna have to desolder at least 2 of these wires to flip everything around. So I'm gonna desolder off the flight controller because that's the easiest. These are the smallest wires, so most people have an iron that's capable of soldering the small wires. You may run into trouble with the thicker wires and trying to double up the wires on the other side.
Yeah.
So we're gonna desolder the camera.
Is that a new iron?
Yeah, it's a TS100.
For you?
Huh?
Is that a new iron you got?
Yeah, we sell them over here.
Oh man, look at that.
I had to get another one because I finally took mine home.
So, if you did a solid iron, we got them. TS100. All right, so you're gonna do the flight controller now. That's wait. That's the VTX.
You gotta remember where the leads are. So you may want to take a picture or something like that so you have it down the road.
Or you just pause this video right there. So usually the black is the ground.
Yeah.
And while you're doing that, what temperature do you have that iron at?
300 Celsius.
And you saw he just literally just touched it for a sec, or half a sec.
Yeah. So we have ground here and signal there. Yellow is signal, black is ground.
Okay.
So we got that off.
Easy enough.
Then I'm going to take some wire snips and I'm going to undo the zip ties holding the VTX. There. So now I can get the VTX. And we got rubber bands and stuff everywhere, guys. This is fun. All right, so we got our zip ties off. So the VTX, we're gonna just pull through here, and now we're gonna flip it around.
Make sure
and run it right back through.
Yeah, I would make sure you note the one hole is in the rear, so you don't want to take it all apart
and put it right back together. Yeah. So we're gonna run it that way. So now I'm gonna need to run these wires back through, and I'm gonna need 2 small zip ties. So I'm just running the new zip ties, and you do need small zip ties for this. The smaller the better, just because of the little.
And you putting the little the locking mechanism on the bottom.
Yeah.
Not where the flight stack goes.
Yeah, because I don't want it to get in the way of the flight stack.
And it will get in the way because there's not much room. So you don't want to pull too hard. You just want to secure it so it doesn't fall out. You don't want to pull it and crack the board or whatever. So as you see, he's putting it through one side, the locking mechanism on the bottom, and back on the other side. All right, so you got our 2 zip ties in there.
Yeah, I got 2 zip ties. I got the VTX back down.
Okay. So now I think we can reassemble our stack right there. One thing, make sure you have to move that out of the way, the rubber band out of the way. Make sure you don't forget to put it back.
Yeah.
Because that will be very hard to get back.
So we got our rubber band back in place. This is back run through. So now we got to run. Now you got to remember we got these grommets. I didn't take those off for a reason. And I'm going to carefully run the screws back through.
So the big 4 mounting screws and the grommets never came off the frame.
The frame now, correct.
Okay.
So I'm going to run that there. Now we've flipped the frame.
So there's our wires from the VTX come out, up and through.
Yeah. So we need to solder the VTX. Now you can either put it back together and solder if it's easier for you to hold, or I'm going to go ahead and solder it without and then move it back.
Okay.
And this is a good time to have flux. I'm just going to put a little bit of flux on these. And I'm going to re-tin it.
And tinning is just basically putting solder on the iron and then touching the wire ever so gently.
Alright, so I'm going to put my signal back to the signal pad. And if you have helping hands or a second person, it makes things a lot easier. But we're just going to do it this way.
I can't reach, so...
No, we're good.
Yeah. So that's such a hot iron, and it's such a small wire.
Yeah, it flows really quick.
It flows quick, and it's super simple to do.
And if you're new to this hobby and you just start soldering, just get yourself a TS100.
I can't tell you how many times people come in and have problems soldering. But once you get these nice tools, it makes everything so much easier. Because let's face it, you are going to crash this guy, and you're going to pull a wire out. You're going to need to replace a motor. You're going to have to do that. And if you have to do any of that stuff, it requires a soldering iron. Alright, so now you got the black one in there, right? The black wire is the ground.
Yep. And that's all the soldering we need to do.
So that's not bad. Not bad at all.
That's all the mandatory soldering. There's optional soldering. We'll get to that.
Now, if you're not good at soldering and you want to just cut the wires in the middle and not solder the board,
that's doable. I mean, you could cut them in the middle and put shrink tube over and all that. If you're not comfortable, you don't want to lift the pad. That's definitely doable. Just be careful. Make sure you put shrink tube over it or secure it, because you don't want them grounding and shorting.
And don't use wire nuts from Home Depot to do that.
Yeah.
You laugh, but people do it all the time.
All right. So now we're gonna drop the standoffs back on.
Those are the hot pink looking dealios, purplish.
I think they are pink. Can't tell.
Okay, so now we have our ESC is in the bottom, and there are our standoffs, and then now this is the part that's pretty cool because there's no wires. It's just a pin.
Yeah, and keep in mind the new front. We just reversed it, so the single hole is in the back and 2 holes in the front, unlike when it came factory. So the arrow needs to go forward, and you'll also notice these little pins right here. You'll need to plug those into that. So you got to be very careful. I'm going to put these wires, I'm going to push those wires to one side, and I'm paying attention more so to plugging in right now.
So there's what, a whole 2 rows of pins you have to line up perfectly.
So you get that. Now it's plugged in. And you can see I ran the wire underneath the flight controller, because if you try to run it over, you might not have enough wire length, depending on the manufacturer, how much wire they put on it.
And it just clears everything up, really.
Yeah, you'll want to run it under. And just be careful before you put anything together. Make sure you didn't pinch the wire under there or stick it in where the pins are. That is how you create a short.
That'd be a smoke fest. So far, we haven't really done anything other than flip the frame.
Yeah.
In terms of new hardware and new. Yeah. All right.
And I'm just going to thread it into where the prop nut stops. That way the grommets can do their job.
Right. So you don't want to over tighten, because like Will said,
you're not trying to tighten everything up. You're just trying to get it to where. And I'm literally, once I feel the screw kind of hit the bottom or my finger, because I'm not using a prop wrench or anything on that, or a wrench or anything. I'm just using the hex driver. So once it's there, it's on. And
because those grommets on the bottom are a cushion, if you want to call it that, right?
Yeah, it's
it
for
keeps
vibration.
The vibrations out. So if you tighten it too much, there's no point of having that.
All right, so now we got our camera lead here. Now here's where the fun part gets into play. So we got this.
Wait a minute, that's not fun before.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's the more fun. We're just so much fun going on here, guys. This would be a great time to plug it back
before you put the guards on. Plug that guy in because it's real hard to get to when the guards are on.
So that will plug in down there.
Yeah, and then there's no spot for the LED. I just have mine dangling, but more importantly, I'm using that buzzer because, let's face it, I don't want to lose this guy.
It's true.
Yeah, or the whole thing for that fact. But
if you want, you can go ahead and put the guards on. You don't have to. That way the motors aren't floating around. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And now, guys, remember, if you are going to take the guards off, say for some reason you don't want to run the guards anymore, these screws are going to be too long and you will kill the motors.
Yes.
So
just use the guards.
Yeah, use the guards. If you're going to not use the guards, use shorter screws or literally cut the guard off.
Use the guards. All right, so now we're just going to tighten everything back up. This is probably the most difficult part for me, at least, is putting those screw through the frame, through the guard, through the motor. Yeah. So just be patient. Take your time. Take a deep breath, and you'll get it.
Curse a lot. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. The worst part about this whole thing is this, and this is really not hard. It's just frustrating at best because.
And then trying to figure out where the last screw went. Now, since we did take the tape off, we'll probably want to run a zip tie around the wires just to secure them so they don't ever come up into the props.
Yeah, that's important.
We'll do that later on.
And I would do that last, and the zip tie is a good idea. I don't really recommend double electrical tape. Just was pain in the neck for me.
And it tracks all the dirt.
Yeah, the one zip tie is all you need in this guy.
So now we're going to take the standoffs.
Again, these are 28 millimeters. I use these on mine. Give me enough room for me to work on. You could probably go 25 if you're...
I'd probably stick with the 28 to 30.
Yeah. 30 looked a little goofy to me. So, all right. So now you're putting the standoffs in the 3 holes we put the canopy in.
So we're going to take the mini split here. And one thing you're going to find is, how is that going to plug into that?
You get 2 of the same side.
Doesn't happen. Well, it comes with a cable in the packaging right here. So you could, in theory, plug one into the other if you move the pins around, because these do not match up. I'm going to go ahead and plug this in to show you what I'm talking about. If you plug it in and then plug it in, you're going to have a good or a bad time.
So basically the red is going to the yellow.
Yellow, black, and red line up on this side, but yellow and red are reversed on this side. So you have to lift pins and move it around. So what we need to do is take an X-Acto.
And if you don't know how to do this, this is pretty easy. Could you actually cut the wires and just resolder them if you're not very good at that?
Yeah.
All right. So there's 2 ways to do it, or 3 ways to do it. 1 way is lift the pins. 2 ways, snip the wire. 3 ways is just bypass the whole thing.
So I just lifted those little plastic tabs. Not too much because you don't want to break them. Take it out, and I'm just going to move the red over. And there you go.
There you go.
So that's that. Now, if you are OCD freak or anything like that, and you don't want all this excessive wire, you could solder right to that. Now we're going to mount the split.
The cool thing, going back to this, the cool thing I like about this is I could take off the whole entire split and keep it all as one little module, one little pod, if you call it that. So that's why I like that.
So we're going to take some of the hardware that it came with. I'm going to dump it out right here.
All right.
All right, so the way I'm thinking here, one of the ways, depending on how the part was made, you could run this standoff that comes with the RunCam there, run the little short nut on top, and then run one of these screws from the board. So it'd be like this, and then that with the board in between.
And that's what the screws that just came with it. So the hardware.
The longer screws, sorry. There's 4 longer screws, so you'd use the 4 longer screws there. And that could mount it there.
And where would the board go?
The board would go in between these two. So it'd be like that.
Okay.
Like that.
Okay. All right, so just you have...
So I used the 4 longer button head screws, the plate, the 4 longer button head screws. Then I used 4 of those standoffs there with the threads on the other side.
Okay. Turn it over real quick and let's show everybody that plate you're talking about.
This is the...
Yeah. So what's that? That
helps secure the SD card from ejecting.
Right. And if you crash...
And it holds that connector on.
Right.
Run that through, and the way I did it is the plate going to the bottom there, and then I'm just going to use these short little hex nuts on the top. Make sure you don't over tighten it, and depending on the plastic you use, don't use Loctite, guys.
Yeah.
If you want to secure it with thread lock, use a drop of super glue, just standard super glue. Loctite tends to melt plastic, so unless the material you're using is known to withstand Loctite from melting, just use a dab of super glue to secure it.
You're talking not in the threads.
On the threads, as thread locker. Just a little drop inside? On the thread, and then put the nut on. Yeah, just a little drop. Right. So now the last thing to do is to mount the actual RunCam. Problem is we are doing a custom mod, so with custom mods comes needing spare parts, or parts, hardware that's not necessarily in the kit. Yeah. So in this case, we are going to need 2 M2x5 screws to secure the camera. Again, this is something I grabbed out of my hardware box, so that's that.
All right, now the last step.
Does this actually fit through there or no? It doesn't.
Yes, it does.
It does? Mm-hmm. Tuck a bunch of wires.
And make sure you don't pinch the wires.
Yeah. See, right now I'm actually sitting on that connector, which is a little close, and I want to make sure I'm not forcing anything down. And check our camera wires. I almost pinched that one there. So I got everything. Yep, it's good to go. So now I'm going to mount it.
All right, so all 3 screws are in and we're good to go, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much everything there.
So you just converted the ET115 V2 to a CineWhoop, they call them. Cinnabon?
CineWhoop.
Yeah. Cinnabon. Let's plug it in and see if we get any smoke.
Plug it in for smoke. Check for smoke.
Yay! No smoke. So everything's on. Now plug it in. Your BetaFlight screen's on there. RunCam's on there. And it's on! You passed, sir. Good job.
I'm going to go ahead and put it zip tie down on the wires.
Again, not very hard. That's just so
the
wires don't flop up and get caught and broken in the 117.5 grams. And that is also includes all the grass stains.
Oh yeah, the extra dirt
all around the edges. And the brand new one is 98. So about 19 grams difference.
Yeah.
Is that a lot for these little guys?
Considering we're going to an HD, that's a heck of a lot less weight than a GoPro.
Yeah.
So that's a great little mod then overall.
Yeah. That guy right there he's 4.5 grams.